Hey everyone, welcome to this explainer on the Starjab Tracksphere system. I am so excited to guide you through this today. We're going to take what could just be a really dense technical manual and transform it into a vibrant, practical look at your daily operational workflow for mission-critical personnel accountability. If you manage high-risk environments, you already know that keeping track of every single person on site isn't just some regulatory checkbox. It is an absolute operational necessity. So let's dive right in and see how this powerful software becomes your digital ledger. Now, booting this software isn't like just opening a regular desktop app. It really requires the precision of a highly critical vessel launch procedure. We have 3 non-negotiable startup phases that we absolutely must master. First, you initialize the local server. Then you connect the hardware gateway, and finally, you launch the command center. You have to follow that exact order to make sure the background services are fully primed and ready to receive data from your RFID hardware. Here is our chronological standard operating procedure for today. Number 1. Mission Critical System Foundation. 2. Step 1. Web Service Initialization. 3. Step 2. Smart Gateway Activation. 4. Step 3. Secure System Authentication. And finally, number 5. The Protocol for System Restarts. Section 1. Mission Critical System Foundation. Before we even think about touching the interface, we need to understand exactly why we're following such a strict hardware-to-software bridge. Looking at the administrator journey, we are focusing entirely on phase 1, which is system initialization. You see, the Tracksphere system relies on an on-premise, Windows-based application environment. Think of this local host server as the system's central brain. It powers the integrated SQL database and that crucial real-time headcount display. If this central brain isn't booted properly, well, those physical RFID readers out in the field won't have anywhere to send their live entry and exit timestamps. Section 2. Step 1. Web Service Initialization. This web service absolutely must be launched first, simply because it powers the primary interface for literally everything else we're going to do. Executing this requires some specific physical actions on the host server desktop. First up, locate the shortcut icon labeled Start Web and double-click it. Almost immediately, a Windows command prompt is going to open up. Behind the scenes, this terminal is running the PM2 Process Manager. You can think of PM2 as a tireless digital foreman. It's there to make sure your background processes stay alive even if a minor crash happens. Your only job here is to watch that terminal like a hawk and wait for one very specific line of text to pop up. PM2 process successfully started. Once that terminal opens, you want to pay really close attention to the console table that gets generated in the command prompt. Look right under the name column for the word Tracksphere, and then just follow that row straight over to the status column. Here is the absolutely crucial point. You are looking for the exact word online, highlighted in green. You literally must visually confirm that specific word in the terminal table before you press any key to continue. If it doesn't say online, your database isn't active yet, and trying to proceed is just going to cause a system error. Section 3. Step 2. Smart Gateway Activation. So once you've confirmed that the web service is online, we move to the piece of the puzzle that actually talks to your physical hardware. To kick this off, locate and double-click the Start Gateway desktop icon. This launches the Suprema GSD device gateway. What this gateway does is act as a critical bridge. It interprets all those raw signals coming from your physical Suprema XPass2 field readers and translates them perfectly for the Tracksphere server. The very moment you run it, the gateway starts actively listening for incoming hardware connections. Specifically, it starts accepting TCP connections on port 51212 and secure SSL connections on port 51213. Here's what the initialization logs will look like pouring into that gateway terminal. At first, you'll see lines confirming that it's accepting those TCP and SSL connections we just talked about. But you need to wait and watch for the lines that say Start Real-Time Monitoring. Because your field readers might come online at slightly different times, seeing this specific line log multiple times is your ongoing verification. It confirms that the digital handshake has been completed and that each and every physical reader has successfully established a rock-solid connection with the server. Now, please listen carefully, because this is without a doubt the absolute golden rule of the entire Tracksphere system. The manual states this explicitly. Critical requirement: minimize this window, do not close it. Maintaining this active terminal state is quite literally the lifeline of the entire tracking system. If you click that X and close this command prompt, you instantly sever the communication bridge. All the physical readers in your facility will go offline, and no personnel movements will be recorded. So again, minimize, never close. Section 4. Step 3. Secure System Authentication. With our web service running smoothly and our smart gateways safely minimized and listening, we are securely bridged. Now, To reach the control center, operators just need to open a standard web browser on the host machine and navigate to localhost on port 3000. That URL brings you directly to the Tracksphere secure login portal. And don't worry, the system is protected by strict role-based access control, which prevents any unauthorized tampering with your site's critical safety settings. For the initial system setup, you're going to need the default credentials. The username is simply admin. But a quick word of warning, the system security here is tight. If you input the wrong password 3 consecutive times, the system triggers an automatic, temporary lockout. It's a really vital feature to stop brute force access, but definitely something administrators need to be highly aware of during that initial setup. Section 5. Protocol for System Restarts. We all know we're dealing with harsh industrial environments, complex networks, and rigorous 24/7 uptimes. So what actually happens if the system becomes unresponsive? Let's say you run into a frozen user interface screen, or you suddenly notice a lag in real-time data syncing from the field readers. First rule, panic is not the answer. There is an exact, perfectly safe recovery method designed to reboot the system without risking any database corruption or losing any of your recent tap-ins. Here is the strict chronological sequence for that recovery. First, and I cannot stress this enough, do not manually close those active terminal windows we minimized earlier. Instead, go to your desktop and double-click the web restart icon. This is a dedicated utility. Behind the scenes, you just wait for the PM2 manager to automatically apply a restart action to the application. Once that's triggered, you've got to wait patiently for the application status to return to online in the prompt before you even attempt to refresh or reopen your web browser portal. Under the hood, this automated restart process looks very similar to our initial startup. By using this provided utility, instead of forcibly closing out windows, operators can confidently execute a system refresh. It ensures the background database gracefully pauses and then resumes without dropping a single byte of data. To wrap all this up, the crucial takeaway here is that this digital ledger is truly only as reliable as its foundation. Strictly following the exact launch order, web service first, smart gateway second, and diligently managing your minimized window states is exactly what keeps this life-saving digital safety ledger intact and actively communicating with the physical world. We're going to build your system from the foundation up in 4 logical phases: mapping zones and readers, synchronizing your Suprema hardware, setting up user roles and access levels, and finally, defining system taxonomies. All right, kicking things off with Phase 1, mapping zones and readers. This is exactly where your physical facility meets its digital twin. Think of creating a zone as drawing a digital fence around a physical space, like your helideck or the main gate. But the real secret sauce here? That's the tap interval logic. Imagine a guy just standing around lingering right next to an RFID reader. If you don't have a defined cooldown period, your system's just going to log a crazy, chaotic string of duplicate entries. By dialing in those tap intervals and defining maximum capacity limits, your dashboard stays super clean. It's only going to trigger alerts when a zone is genuinely oversaturated. Okay, next up is provisioning the sensor itself. To actually bind your hardware to that zone you just made, you head over to the Readers module and lock in the device's unique ID. Now, here's a massive pro tip for you. Absolutely assign a static IP address. If the vessel undergoes a power cycle or the network resets, that static IP ensures your reader connects instantly. No dropped comms. Set the directionality to bidirectional, map it to the zone, and boom, your sensor is live. So, with those zones active, the whole setup runs on a really strict semi-automated interval logic. It's super simple. A worker's first tap registers an entry, and their very next tap registers an exit. Instantly, right behind the scenes, the SQL database does the heavy lifting. It strips the user out of their previous zone and logs them right into the new one. This is exactly what gives your control room that flawless, real-time visibility. Moving right along to Phase 2, Suprema hardware and synchronization. Time to bridge those physical endpoints to the Tracksphere software. Setting up the GSDK gateway is essentially building the bridge that interprets all those raw hardware signals. You'll want to point the gateway host to a local IP, specifically that classic 127.0.0.1, and then link it to your specific Suprema XPass2 device IP. Once you have that local gateway service listening on port 4000, your hardware and software are actively chatting. But keeping that conversation accurate means you have to be really diligent about executing data maintenance commands on the reader's local memory. And it is absolutely critical to know the difference between your syncing commands here. You use restore all personnel to device when you're swapping out hardware. That command pushes complete profiles and RFID serial numbers directly from the central database straight to the new reader. It literally saves you from having to physically retap hundreds of ID cards. On the flip side, Clear All Cards from Device acts as a secure factory wipe. You absolutely have to run this during fresh initializations. It completely obliterates all stale data, so you don't end up with ghost records haunting your active dashboard. All right, hardware is communicating correctly. Let's jump right into Phase 3, User Roles and Access Levels, where we manage the human operators and lock down who actually gets to touch the system. Tracksphere leans heavily on strict role-based access control to keep things secure. Basically, administrators hold all the master keys. We're talking full module access, hardware setup, user management, data wiping, the whole shebang. Meanwhile, operators and safety officers get a specialized read-only view. They can monitor the live dashboards and pull those necessary compliance reports, but there is zero chance they can accidentally mess up your hardware configurations. And to protect the whole architecture, the system is honestly pretty unforgiving by design. 3 consecutive incorrect password attempts, immediate temporary lockout, no exceptions. From there, an admin actually has to step in to restore access. It's a simple but totally ironclad safeguard for your accountability ledger. The beauty is that managing this access is practically instantaneous. Right in the admin settings, under Manage Users, you can provision a new profile in seconds. Just drop in a name, an email, assign a temporary password, and they're good to go. And what if a contractor wraps up their project? You just select the user, hit deactivate, and their access is completely revoked. It keeps your security protocol totally airtight, 24/7. And that brings us to the final stretch, Phase 4, defining system taxonomies in the master data settings. Look, categorizing your master data correctly is your absolute secret weapon for making sense of all the telemetry flowing in. By predefining categories, like companies for your third-party vendors, departments for operational divisions like engineering or drilling, and personnel types to separate short-term contractors from regular offshore crew, you give your operators massive context. When an emergency happens, this exact setup lets a safety officer instantly slice through complex data. They can filter to show only visitors or pinpoint the exact zone of the entire catering team. You're transforming raw tap data into literal life-saving intelligence. Here's our agenda for today, mapping out a day in the life of a safety officer. First, navigating the command center. Then, managing your personnel roster. Moving on to real-time live monitoring. And finally, generating historical audit reports. All right, Section 1, Navigating the Command Center. Let's look at the software interface. So the whole foundation of the Tracksphere system is built on this really clean 3-module sidebar on the left side of your interface. It's logically broken down into Overview, Operations, and Administration settings. And why does this matter? Well, this architecture is built for rapid access. When you're in a high-stakes environment, you literally don't have time to be digging through complex menus. This setup ensures that safety officers can snap between live tracking and historical reports with barely any clicks, keeping your focus exactly where it needs to be. To quickly familiarize yourself, let's break down the main functions you'll be accessing from that left-hand menu. First, your dashboard. That gives you your live, real-time occupancy. Then, the Personnel tab is where you manage your Active Directory of staff profiles. Reports is going to be your go-to for all historical logs and compliance data. And finally, Settings, which is where your admins will configure the physical zones and map out the RFID hardware. Getting comfortable with this menu is basically step 1 for maintaining total situational awareness. Moving right along to Section 2, Managing your personnel roster. We're talking about the human element here. The Personnel module acts as your ultimate database, dynamically centralizing all of your human asset tracking. Right at a glance, you can view Active Directory statuses, unique employee IDs, specific organizational roles, and critically, exactly which zone they are currently located in. Oh, and take a look at that top banner. It gives you an immediate headcount ratio. You instantly see your total personnel versus who is currently on site, alongside the total count of registered RFID cards. It really is your operational hub. Now, adding a new crew member or a short-term contractor involves a very precise onboarding flow. You start with their core identity details and an employee ID, then move into organizational mapping, and finish up with hardware binding. And actually, that last step is absolutely vital. You are taking a physical high-frequency RFID card and linking it directly to this newly created digital profile using a desktop scanner. Without that physical-to-digital link, tracking simply doesn't happen. And you know, this whole onboarding process goes way beyond just typing in a name and a badge number. Capturing emergency contact info or ICE data and setting organizational filters like company and department is crucial. Think about it. If a user is trapped in a zone during an incident, rescue coordinators are pulling this exact data directly from the main dashboard. The accuracy of your emergency response is entirely dependent on how diligent you are with this initial data entry. Okay, let's get into Section 3, Real-Time Live Monitoring. This is the live occupancy pulse of your facility. The real game changer to understand here is zone occupancy monitoring. And to be totally clear, Tracksphere isn't passive tracking. It relies on an active accountability protocol. Personnel actively confirm their location by presenting their RFID card to a reader. The system then instantly translates those active tap-ins into live headcount totals for those specific physical areas. In high-risk environments, like offshore barges or industrial plants, this isn't just fun data to have. Knowing exact locations during an emergency muster is quite literally a matter of life and death. To visualize all of this, Tracksphere uses the big screen live dashboard, which is designed to run continuously on a dedicated monitor. It automatically pulls all these live metrics together so operators can see the big picture without even touching a keyboard. You get your total personnel on site, specific zone occupancy counters so you know exactly which areas are clear, active zones, and tag read activity trends. If a site evacuation happens, rescue coordinators can just glance at the screen and instantly verify who is checked in at the muster points and who is still unaccounted for. But hey, understanding who is on site is just as important as knowing how many, right? That's why the dashboard features this dynamic visual breakdown. It instantly segments your short-term contractors from your regular offshore crew members or day visitors. It gives you an immediate ratio of the workforce makeup currently on the premises, which is a fantastic tool for both security and just general operational resource management. Have you ever stared at a monitoring screen and just thought, is this thing actually working? Well, Tracksphere completely solves that with Tag Read Activity Trends. This displays a live, scrolling feed of the last 10 to 15 recent scans. By showing the name, the card number, the exact time, and the specific triggered zone popping up in real time, operators get continuous visual confirmation of system health and personnel movement. It is literally the live heartbeat of your facility's foot traffic. All right, our final section, Section 4, Generating Historical Audit Reports. Let's talk about immutable data trails. It is really important to draw a clear line between these two main functions of the software. That big screen dashboard we just looked at, that's your immediate emergency response tool. It tells you what is happening right this second. System reports, on the other hand, serve as your historical compliance ledger. Reports are what you're going to use for post-incident reviews, regulatory safety audits, and digging into your daily operational logs using date range filtering. Because you're generating massive amounts of top data every single day, the reporting engine gives you highly specific filtering tools. You aren't just downloading some giant, messy spreadsheet of numbers. You can filter by date ranges, narrow it down to a specific subcontractor company, select a personnel type, or just use the search bar to track a single employee's exact movement history. This means if you need to audit a vendor's site hours for billing or investigate an incident involving one specific worker, the exact data you need is just a few clicks away. Once you have filtered the exact data you're looking for, Tracksphere provides built-in extraction tools to get that data out of the system fast. You can export to Excel, which is absolutely perfect for data manipulation, long-term digital archiving, or shooting it over to off-site management. Or you can use the Print A4 function that instantly formats the data grid into a super clean PDF layout designed for physical hard copies, which is a lifesaver when you need manual signatures for your on-site safety logbooks. These tools basically ensure you are always ready for an unexpected audit,